Summertime is heating up at Global Voice Broadcasting. Hot music, hot talk, and hot topics. All day, every day, 24/7. You don't want to miss a minute on Global Voice Broadcasting.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to Into. This is our live interactive talk show about gay issues. I'm your resident psychotherapist, Matt Dempsey. And unfortunately, Jimmy, who normally is with me, can't be here this week. But very fortunately, we do have a special guest co-host.
Yes. Hello. I'm your guest co-host. My name is Brian Nesbitt. I'm tonight's resident non-professional, just here as a general funny person and everyman.
That's right.
I'll try and fill the very big shoes of Jimmy for this evening.
Yes, and I think Jimmy's watching. So, Jimmy, we love you. We miss you. But thank you, Brian. Thank you for coming here, because obviously this wouldn't be happening if I didn't have somebody to do this with.
It would just look like a Skype video or something. It would be good.
But welcome, everybody. So this is our show, Into, and be sure to check us out every Monday, streaming live at 8 p.m. Pacific. You can watch us on our website, which is into.show. You can also follow us on social media at Into Talk Show. And this is an incredibly interactive show. We want to talk with you, not at you. So please call in. The phone number should be up on the screen. The number is 323-522-5482. And call in with your questions.
Yes, please call in. It's like I'm your Jennifer Hudson and Matthew is your, I don't know, Fantasia. Well, and I get the pleasure of introducing the topic tonight.
Which is?
Which is judgment.
Yes.
The good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful of it
all. All the judgment.
I hope you. Did you think of me immediately when you thought judgment? Who'll be a good stand-in?
Which queen?
That son of a. He's rude to me. No, rude him.
But I actually love talking about this topic, and I feel like, anytime that I bring this up in whatever social media or something, I always get to like a lot of response. So I think that there's something that kind of resonates with other people, and especially as gay men too, it happens a lot. There's kind of like the stereotype of almost like the sassy queen, who can be really cutting and have that kind of sense of humor. So, Brian, what are your thoughts?
Well, certainly, when you bring it up, the sense that it's certainly part of our culture, and I think it's a tricky road, because there's people that, when they have that personality, that like make funny little comments and funny little barbs, and it comes out fine, because if you know them and you know where they're coming from, you realize they're not actually judging, but they're just like toying and having fun.
Yeah.
But it is a fine line, because
it's a really fine line. I think it's a really fine line even with your friends, even with people that you know really well and trust, to go to that brand of humor where it can be really cutting. It's sometimes it doesn't take much for things to get misconstrued, or for there to be those kind of issues. So I don't know, what about you, just like personally, like with your friends, does that tend to be a big part of like your humor? And
yeah, it does, and I love it. Yes, with me and my friends, because the switchboard will light up the moment I say anything that is like even close to. I've never judged a day in my life. No, I think it's
like a Christmas tree.
I think that in general, judgment. I was, when you brought up the topic, I was thinking about my life and how I've kind of developed. And as far as judgment goes, I really think a lot of it is about your own security with who you are. And when you start to realize, like, you do have a power to how other people feel. Like, the things that you say to them, you can ruin their day and you don't even know it. And you're, like, making an off-the-cuff joke or whatever else. And, like we had talked about, like, if it's a haircut or putting on an extra pound or whatever, you are a person that is, everyone has their own insecurities, and you're susceptible to what everyone's reaction is, especially if it's a friend of yours. So it's really important you learn along the way. I think it's one of those, treat others as you want to be treated. And if you feel like shit when someone makes a comment or passes judgment on you when they don't even know you, or when they do know you, it's going to hurt and it's going to suck.
What do you do when you're in that situation, even if it's not necessarily, regardless if it's a friend or somebody that you're not very close with, if somebody makes a comment to you, it's just kind of like a joke or is something that's kind of cutting, and it actually does hit below the belt and it hurts you, what do you do with that? Do you say anything?
It's funny, over time, when I was younger, I wish I could go back to my young self and be like, don't give a shit what other people say. But, back then it hurt, and I would just get kind of quiet, and I would beat myself up a little bit.
Yeah.
But now I'm very much like, most things bounce off my back because I've become a little bit more secure in myself. And I think as you get older, you just stop giving a shit, and you're like, you know what, you can think whatever you want.
But so what do you do? So do you not say anything, or what?
If it's something that hurts my feelings, I will take a moment. I'll probably get a little quiet, which is very unlike me.
Yeah.
So everyone that knows me knows that when I get quiet, it's like, oh
There's
shit,
something up.
we've hit Armageddon. But it is something that I will end up saying later, because I've learned the something good that can come out of it is you just approach that person and you say, I know you didn't mean it maybe, or you weren't trying to hurt my feelings, but you did, and it kind of sucked. And I know that you're not the kind of person that wants to hurt my feelings or make me feel like crap. And I appreciate our friendship, and I think, we have a good relationship. And part of that is being honest with you when you hurt my feelings. And I feel like you passed judgment on me when you didn't really know this whole situation, or you didn't know the whole story.
So when you're launching into this, is your friend just like, oh shit?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyone that I've been quiet with, if I didn't return a text message today, I'm gonna get a phone call from that person like, what did I do? Screw you.
That's really good though. I think that's awesome that you will just approach it really directly and just go right to it and squash it, because it's really easy. For me, it would be really easy at different points in my life. It would have been easier to just not say anything at all and just be like, oh, whatever. I didn't need to. I know they were just joking, and dismiss it and not say anything at all. Or the flip side of that too is it's also easy to just kind of be sharp back, like, oh, you think that was cutting? Well, I'm gonna one up you, and then it just goes back and forth, and
then you're just both digging your own grave.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's something too that it's not like I had this innate ability to be like, what's right and wrong. I just learned over time, having arguments with friends, and I've learned that the best result is always if you just sit down and you're honest with them. And the moment I found that you tell people you're honest and you're like, you hurt my feelings, that immediately takes down all defenses, and they just are like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Right.
I didn't mean to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
And you can kind of build off of that from there.
Totally, yeah. It can definitely be tricky, because I think maybe the anticipation is that if I say anything, or if I go there, then I'm making it too serious, or I'm gonna make it a bigger deal, quote unquote, than it really is or needs to be, or we just kind of catastrophize the whole situation of what it could be, when it actually can be the very thing that just breaks it down, and actually you can find resolution to whatever the situation was,
And I feel like if you, as far as you passing judgment, you yourself passing judgment on other people, we all do it. I mean, I'm sure I did it 3 times today.
Brian, when did you do it? What was the last thing you did?
Oh my God,
what
it was
your
with you.
Last piece of judgment?
It was with you.
It was?
Yeah, I thought of this. I wasn't going to tell you.
Me.
I was going to wait until the show.
Oh, good.
No, I remember the first time I met you. I'm not at specific exact time, but I just remember thinking oh, he's attractive. I'm sure he's an asshole. Or oh God, he's probably got the personality of vanilla ice cream. But
all true.
I might have said toast. Yeah, all true. But I didn't say it out loud. But in my head, I did think it. And but then it was just recently, as we got to know each other a little bit more, I was like, oh my God, he's really funny, and he's a little bit sarcastic too. I love that. So he's an inciting person that I'll push into traffic if he crosses me. No, I would never do that. I'd make someone else do it.
What do you think? I mean, that specifically, or anything else, where do you think that comes from? Why do you think that it is so easy for us to judge other people, and maybe even more specifically as gay men, there can be this tendency to judge?
I think it's a defense mechanism. I think it's when you are threatened by something new or different that is not something that you're used to. At least I think that's where a lot of it comes from with me. I come from a small town, and I love my family. They're a huge reason why I am the person I am today. But definitely growing up in a small town, you're more sheltered from anything that's different from you. And judgment came quite often when it was anyone who entered the community or wherever that looked a little bit different, acted a little bit different, and it was judgment was quickly doled out. And it could be dangerous, because especially it's just like anything. The new kid at school was immediately ostracized because he was a little bit different or whatnot. And I think that, over time I found out that, if I get to know the new kid, or figure out that just because someone's a little weird or whatever, that doesn't make them a bad thing.
Yeah.
And got to know them, it helped. I think it really helped that I was totally the black sheep of my family, and still am, but I just don't give a shit about it anymore. So I think it helped give me the idea that how, that whole thing of treating other people, you want to be treated the same. So I think, growing up in a small town, witnessing that, and then getting into bigger cities and meeting different people in college and moving out to LA certainly
definitely
helped me kind of open up my eyes and realize that judging really, there's never any good result from judging.
Well, but you're right too. I mean, regardless of how ineffective it might be or problematic it can be, I mean, there's a lot of things that would fall under that category, yet it still happens. And to understand why and where that comes from too can be helpful, because it is a defense. It's whenever we feel as though there is really any kind of a threat. And I think the interesting thing, actually, maybe to just tweak something that you said, which is that when you see somebody who's different, and that, or experience somebody who's different, defenses can flare. And I think perhaps maybe even more specifically for us as gay men, when we're confronting other gay men, there's almost this extra insight. It's like, oh, you're gay, so like you kind of get it. I can't use the same kind of facade that I can with other people, and I'll be able to get away with it. It's like you might be able to pick up on something. So defenses can flare even that much more, because I don't want you to know. I don't want you to get it. I think we actually have our first call.
Oh.
So hello, caller, are you there?
This is my mother.
Hey, Matt.
Is this Jimmy?
It's Mel from West Hollywood again.
Oh, it's Mel. Mel, you sound like Jimmy. I got so excited.
I know, the serial caller.
But Mel,
anyway,
I'm also equally excited that you called in, so thank you for calling. How are you?
I'm okay and great and good. So I just wanted to, my condolences to Jimmy, and I hope he's doing great, and I send my love out to him.
Thank you for saying that.
Just to keep it on a lighter note, Matt, what about people that judge people that wear white Vans?
I don't know who those monsters are, but we should talk to them.
They say, and is this before or after Labor Day? Because that is a no-no.
It doesn't matter.
So I think
anyway,
Mel is specifically
I just wanted to say hi, and I'm listening, so I'm going to hang up and just, let you guys go.
Cool. Well, did you have any legitimate questions for us about judgment or anything?
No,
anything with your life?
No, I just like to say hi, and I tune in every week, and the topics are always cool, and I may not have to contribute anything, but so I just thought, judgy people about white Vans can suck a bag of dicks. Okay?
Thanks, Mel.
Thank you.
I appreciate the support.
I'm wearing black leather shoes, just so we're clear. Great.
Thanks, Mel. I appreciate it. Thanks for calling in. So, for those of you who might not know what Mel
is
an
inside joke that
is
not...
kind of on social media. I just recently posted a video that a friend took of me dancing around in white vans. Yes. A little play off of Daniel with the white vans, but anyway. So nobody should judge any of them.
No. Well, it's funny though, because it's actually when we're talking about gays and judging and everything, we had talked before. It still when I'm, for instance, I say that oh, I don't give a shit, I care, but we'll be going to a party and I'll still try on fucking 6 different shirts.
Yeah.
And why? What? I know I look good in something, and then I'll walk out. And actually, I have to say, not to throw him under my bus, but my partner Jason, we've been together quite a long time, so we should know these things by now. But
how long have you and Jason been together for?
And it will be 14 years this August.
Congratulations!
Thank you. We met when we were 12. Let's stick with that. Still to this day, I will walk out and, if he so much as gives me a side look as far as what I'm wearing on my shirt, I'm immediately what? What's wrong? What? Does it make me look fat? I don't understand. Slam. Nothing works. Burn it all.
We're done.
So we're done.
But there's definitely a hypersensitivity to any of that kind of stuff. Where we think that we have to have a really nice, pristine presentation out there, because we can become so fearful of judgment from others, and again, especially even with other gay men, but just become so fearful because when we grow up in a homophobic world where we learn that we're broken and damaged and inadequate at the core, then all of a sudden we feel like everything else needs to be perfectly in place. And if there's the slightest bit, that's why there's a hypersensitivity to criticism. Any bit of criticism, then it can feel like, oh my God, you're actually seeing what's so wrong with me. I actually think we've got another caller. Hello, caller, are you there?
Hello?
Yeah, hi, what's your name?
Hey, this is Marcus from Metro Atlanta.
Awesome. Hey, Marcus, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Hold on one second. Okay. Oh, Hey, Matt.
Hello.
Hey, I missed. You have to apologize. I missed what happened to Jimmy.
So Jimmy unfortunately had to fly home because he had a loss in his family. So,
Oh.
yeah, so we're sending all of our love and condolences out to him because we love Jimmy so much.
We love you, Jimmy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we love Jimmy. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
I am not replacing Jimmy in any way, shape, or form,
No.
just in case that's the panic that's currently going on. Like, who the fuck is this fat ginger that's taking
I heard
Jimmy's...
a different voice, and I was like, who is that?
Yeah, I'm sure, my grating voice is probably not the best replacement for Jimmy.
No, there is no...
any fears.
There is no replacement for Jimmy, but we're very, very happy
Matthew
to
is
have Brian
showing me
because
the
we
door
love
the
him
minute
too.
this is over, and you'll never see me again, except for on...
Marcus, what question do you have for us?
Well, actually, you guys were talking about, like, when people judge you and it can have an effect on how you act. You know, growing up, I was always considered kind of like a smart kid. Mm-hmm. I had, like, the advanced classes, and I would take all these, you know, special courses and stuff. And it actually caused some resentment from the kids that were in, like, the regular classes. I guess regular, you would call it. Because they would judge me and think that, like, oh, I thought I was smarter than them, and I never acted like I was smarter than anybody, but they just kept egging it on, like, picking on me and all this stuff, and over time they got to the point where I was like, if everybody thinks I'm so smart and everybody thinks I'm just this bitchy, smart, stuck-up person, I'm going to start to show them that I can act that way, too. So kind of my question is, how do you sort of avoid taking on like that negative judgment and owning it in like a bad way? Does that make sense?
Got it. Yeah. I mean, it sounds to me. So tell me if I'm getting this right. It sounds that what happened was because everybody was just kind of getting judgmental of you about being like the smart kid, that you actually like really took on that persona and kind of like threw it back at them.
Yeah, just kind of like just got real bitchy towards everybody, and just was like, well, if everybody thinks I'm such a bitch and everybody thinks I'm stuck up, and I'm not.
Then I guess I'll just be that if that's what they want.
Basically.
Yeah, I get that. Brian, did you have any immediate thoughts about that?
It's funny. Well, I was the nerdy kid in high school. As if being gay wasn't bad enough. It was like, let's be super smart too, and put him in the classes 2 grades above himself. But and it's funny because I want to go back to that kid, and when I was teased or whatever, I want to be like, tell them to fuck off, because one day they're going to be doing nothing with their life, and then all those classes paid off. But I guess...
But then that would be judgmental.
But that would be judgmental, which I wouldn't do. So I wouldn't go back in time.
No, but... Good.
Well, I was just going to say, so I think the best thing is to realize that they have their own insecurities too, and where they're coming from and why they're saying these things to you. Mm-hmm. I think it's always helpful, no matter what kind of disagreement you get into with somebody or how they're mean to you or bullying or anything, is to first realize where that other person's coming from. They're human too. They have their faults. Mm-hmm. And it might help you feel a little bit better that, they're probably saying that because they're insecure about themselves.
Yeah, totally. It's a lot harder. That's a lot harder to do, I think, especially when, we're kind of at that developmental age, when we're like going through school and still just trying to figure out so much. It's a lot easier for us to just be defensive, but absolutely. Anytime that we have more of an opportunity of actually considering maybe where somebody's coming from, and also let me just say that's never to excuse what anybody says or allow it to happen, but just to have the starting point of, okay, how insecure or how wounded is this person that they're coming for me like this? And in that moment, I also have, because that's their side of the street. So I've also got my side of the street, and if my shit's getting stirred up and I start to flare up with my defenses, then what's happening there? And if I react to a defense with my own defense, then how much am I just affirming to myself that there is something wrong, that the things that they're saying about me, the way I'm being criticized actually is true, and I need to then have all of my own defenses in order to maintain my own security and safety. This is how I'm going to be okay. So when we're able to just still kind of approach somebody with a certain empathy, compassion, understanding, kindness, or even just being, kind of firm and direct without being nasty or critical or judgmental in return about like, hey man, that's kind of like not cool. Yeah. Or whatever, what I mean?
So would you say, like, if you were to say, I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Marcus.
Marcus, if like if you were to talk to Marcus back, when he was in these classes in high school, and he had that moment of somebody kind of shitting on him or saying something like that, what would you say would be like a good sentence for him or any kid in his position to like run through their head to like kind of say to themselves?
Yeah, Marcus, what would you have done differently in the past? Like if you can go back and actually give your younger self some advice, what would you say?
Well, first of all, if you're picking on me for being smart, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if the worst thing about you is that you're intelligent and that you work hard and you turn in your homework on time and you make good grades, then that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Own that. But also, just honestly, a lot of that stuff, and this goes for pretty much anything that happened in school, like when I was younger. That it seems like a really big deal at the time, and it seems like the world is crashing down around you at the time because these people are picking on you and all this other stuff. But in the long run, none of those people are going to matter. All those people, we're all going to go off our own separate ways and do our own thing, and we're all going to have our own lives. And just, it seems bad now, but in a few years, you won't even know half these people's names anymore. So just don't worry about it anymore.
Yeah. And I think that's I think that's great, Marcus, and obviously, it's not so far off from stuff that as adults we can really face too. So even having kind of a similar script that we can touch base with ourselves, remind ourselves when we're in those moments now too. So I think that's great. And look at that, you come up with your own advice too. So thanks, Marcus.
Go
ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to say something real quick.
What's up?
Hey. Okay. So, Matt, how I started, watching your videos or whatever, is I was kind of dealing with some personal issues, and one of your videos in particular was about shame, I think, that you had on your channel.
Yeah.
It actually really helped me a lot, and it helped me you're always talking about checking in with yourself and all that sort of stuff, and it really, helped me do that at that time when I needed that.
That's
so,
awesome.
Yeah,
that's it.
So I just want to thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you for saying that. That's so sweet, honestly, and that is that's like a gift to hear that and to know that any of that stuff could be helpful. So I'm glad that it was for you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And
well, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for calling in. We appreciate you calling in and having the question. It was awesome. Cool.
Thanks, Marcus.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
nice.
Yeah, that was sweet.
It's a good moment. I like that.
Thank you, Marcus.
I never get that in my daily job. Oh God, I'm in the wrong career.
Yeah. No, you know what I mean. I think it is really challenging for us, especially when somebody's coming at us, to not immediately have our own defenses get flared, and especially in that moment, knowing how much energy we're willing to invest into that, because if we feel like, oh, I need to become defensive, or I need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself and really standing up for myself in our own defensive ways, then we only continue to affirm all of our own negative stuff anyway.
I mean, for the longest time and still to this day, my defense mechanism can be like, oh, they think they can judge me, I'll ruin them.
They don't know judgment.
They don't know about the hammer of Brian. But
it's really tempting.
One of my very best friends had kind of taught me the thing of being like, you know what, you just wish them well and you kind of move on, and you try as hard as you can, be like, you wish them well, and you just move on from there. So that is definitely one of the coping mechanisms that I still use to this day, to just be like, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know what they're saying.
And it's really hard. It's very tempting to just launch into your own attack, because it can kind of feel like, oh, they're not going to get away with that. I'm not going to let them, talk to me like that or treat me like that. Like I'm going to, get them back. So it kind of feels like you're releasing them, you're setting them free, when the reality is you're actually setting yourself free from spinning and all of the muck that can come up that, incites that defense for us.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, honestly, even there are some times when I'm just kind of even texting with some of my friends, and I'm talking about currently, texting with some of my friends, and you can easily get into just kind of like a little jab here, a little jab there, and at some point you can see where it's going, and you have to make a decision of, okay, how can
the train going off the tracks?
How can the next joke be something that's maybe a little self-deprecating, or just not having to make fun of anybody in order to be funny.
Yeah. Oh no, that happens on a daily basis pretty much. I've also learned just changing the subject entirely is sometimes, it's the coward way out, but it works.
Totally.
You don't have to deal with it.
Why don't we, we actually had a few people that were throwing some questions to us on social media, so why don't we see what some people had to say. So, okay, well, we had one question from AID or a D9001, who asks, given that we have all done the most amazingly brave thing in coming out, why can't we all be a little bit kinder to each other? Which I thought was an awesome question.
Yeah.
Any thoughts immediately? I'll just have you.
That.
Just have you be the first one to answer everything.
I don't know. I just blanketly shit on everyone equally.
But really, I mean, think about it. How come, especially because you would think, okay, if we grew up, as gay people who like really know what it's like to be taunted and teased and hurt, why would we keep doing that to our gay brothers and sisters?
I mean, I think that on a wider spectrum, that happens with everything. When you look at one minority group and you see another minority group like shitting on them or treating them differently, you're just like, you guys are going through the same thing. Like, how can you do that? But I think
But even within the community.
Yeah, within the community, sometimes we can be harder on ourselves than anybody else.
Why do you think that happens?
I've actually had this conversation with many people. I think that it's. You would hope that maybe it's a thing of like we're toughening each other up, because I've made jokes before with friends like, oh my God, we're 10 times meaner to each other than anyone else can be. Yeah. So when a stranger's mean to us, I'm gonna be like, literally, that's all you got? Because my best friend just like laid me out this morning. So whatever you say is just useless against me. Yeah. But I guess it's like we said. I think it's also that your insecurities, your weaknesses are so much more apparent to the people that know you. It's kind of like that, like growing up, there was that other gay kid in school that when you were both in the closet, but you knew he was gay and he knew you were gay, and if anything kind of happened, you were like, yeah, he's gay, like, stone him. But, I think it's like that thing of like, you know that person and they know, that their secret or their weaknesses or whatever. So when you feel like your weaknesses are vulnerable, then theirs are too, and it kind of becomes a like survival thing.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and it's a total survival thing. All of our defenses come from that kind of primal, instinctive, reaction to just like defend ourselves, to take care of ourselves in some way. But obviously we're more evolved creatures, so how is it that we're able to kind of rise above that and find different ways of evolving just ourselves, and also within our community too? And it can be a lot easier. I think actually, that's a great thing to consider, like when you're in school and the other gay kid, and it's like you want to push them away, like you don't want to associate because you don't want anything.
Yeah, oh my God, if you're nice to the gay kid, you might as well just wear like a
queer,
a feather boa and a, lipstick or whatever. I did one of those. But yeah.
No, but you don't want to associate that because you don't want anything that's going to call you out. You don't want anything that's going to call out, like you said, anything that's going to be vulnerable and call out what it feels like is a weakness, because we've been socialized to believe that being gay is a weakness, that who we are because we're gay is a weakness, or there's something inadequate or broken about who we are. So all of those defenses really come up very easily, and especially so that whole process of being socialized to believe that there's something inherently wrong with us because we're gay is what we call internalized homophobia. Like we don't grow up in a vacuum, so we internalize those messages. And then when that happens too, we also, as is the case for all of us, a big defense for us is projection. So we also project it out. That belief that there's something wrong with me. Oh, no, I'm fine. It's all these queens, right? And like, oh, she's too judgy. She's too judgy. Oh, like what, and we start calling all of those things out in other people. And that's kind of where that inner community fighting can happen. I mean,
another element that I kind of just thought of is that there's that thing of, when you see other people in our community now, especially when they're in the public eye, or even just when they're like out in public, when you see them and they're misbehaving in any way, shape, or form, or acting like an asshole, or being like excessively flamboyant, and even that's totally fine for them. They can be whoever they want. They can be excessively flamboyant, but there's that thing of like, oh, whatever you're doing is also going to reflect on me, because
like you cringe a little.
Yeah, like if you're gay, I'm gay, and now whoever the public at large is that's passing judgment, I'm going to get thrown into that group, and I want you to like put our best foot forward.
Totally.
In as far as like representing us. So I think maybe that's also an element of like kind of like with that pack mentality of like nipping at other people's
heels. Like, get it together, girl,
because
you're showing what messes we are.
Exactly. Like, I mean, it's like anything, like anything's on TV and it happens to be like a gay parent that's like shitting their child. Like anybody can be a shitty parent. It doesn't matter. But the moment someone who's gay is shitty and it's on the news or anything, you're just like, oh, well, there it goes. Sets us back another 10 years for adoption.
I remember when marriage equality started becoming a thing, like state by state, and then hearing about some of the first gay divorces. Yeah. And my immediate response was, no.
Yeah, like, no, as if stay together, be miserable.
Totally, as if we shouldn't have the right to be able to do that. And, you know, being able to check in on that and lean into the discomfort of it and say, no, that's okay. Right. You know? Because we're always going to have our defenses. We're always going to have judgments about other gay people on any level. So it's normal to have that, to experience that, to call it out, and then choose how to react to, you know, as opposed to just launching into the defense, having a little bit more awareness and practicing a little bit of distress tolerance and not just launching into a reaction.
That's something I'm going to say in front of the mirror every morning.
Which is what?
The distress.
Distress tolerance? Yeah. Tolerate that distress. You got this, Brian. Today's your day.
Breathe.
Affirmations.
I'll just breathe into the poppers and I'll be fine. Let it go.
Jungle juice will save us all. Okay. All right, we actually had another question. This one's coming from @Adrian. I'm sure I'm going to butcher this. Gara998. How can we effectively handle judgment without it affecting us? So how do you deal with it without it, like, you know, taking you over?
I guess this is I would think going back to kind of not having that knee-jerk reaction to judge people and be an asshole and just kind of realize, you know, when you're being an asshole, like, I call myself out on it. I know, like, but I also think you give yourself the opportunity to be like, everybody judges, everybody fucks up.
Yes.
There's been many times where I've done it where I'm like, oh, see, Brian, like, way to go. That got you nowhere.
Well, totally. But that's also a really great distinction is that, okay, I just fucked up or I made a mistake, but I'm not the mistake.
Right.
Just because I really fucked up and, like, started, you know, judging somebody else or it's kind of mean-spirited doesn't mean, like, oh, I'm a terrible human being or I'm a garbage person. But, but okay.
I've had people say to me, like, call me out for doing it, and then I feel fucking awful after it because it's not what you mean to do. You never mean to do it. It's just kind of that when we were talking about that innate kind of just pops up out of nowhere. So I guess
sometimes it just happens.
Part of it
mistakes
is just
happen.
Admitting mistakes happen and then learning from them is the huge thing.
Making amends, apologize when you need to, and then move on. You know, hopefully they're able to forgive you, but then you can also forgive yourself. And I think even because like I'm reading this question and I'm thinking like it sounds to me a little bit as if Adrian's asking if somebody's judging you, if you feel a judgment coming your direction, then how do you handle that without it affecting you? And my immediate thought on that is there's no way it's not going to affect you. When somebody's coming at you with that kind of energy and that defense, you're going to have feelings about it. So don't try to get to a point where you're trying to flip the switch so you don't feel anything, because then that's all, you know, a whole set of other problems to have to deal with about being emotionally disconnected. But just know it, just feel it, just trust the gauge. And if somebody's judging you and you can feel yourself burning up a little bit, like remove yourself for a minute, take a breath, let a moment pass, and acknowledge that you felt something, and then find a way of actually just, like we've been talking about, just acknowledge it, just own it, just say something to the person, you know, if you feel like that's something that you want to do, but you're gonna feel stuff.
I think that brings up a really good point as far as, like, I think about back, like, when Marcus brought up, like, high school and growing up and development. And they teach so much in schools, like, don't be a bully. Like, you know, don't be a bully. But I don't think they really focus enough on what happens if someone's a bully to you? You know, it's going to happen. Someone's going to be a shithead to you. Someone's not going to read the manual about not being a bully. And they're going to be a shithead. And you have to, like, deal with that. And it's hard to deal with when you're a kid. And your immediate reaction is to, like, kick them back or, like, say something shitty back to them. So it's important to think, like, even all the way through adulthood, like, think about things, try and take a step back.
Totally. Yeah. But I think even the whole, like, It Gets Better campaign, I think probably the largest intention behind that was just to help offer a little bit of outside perspective. When you're in it, it just kind of feels like, oh shit, this is life. This is only how it's going to be forever, and this is terrible, and I don't want to keep getting picked on. But also to be able to see a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. So even just having that awareness can be helpful. But you're also bringing up a really great point too, which is, you know, how can we broaden the scope and then in terms, you know, in addition to that, how can we also actually have maybe some tools of dealing with it, of coping, you know, and, like, how do you deal with that? Agreed.
It gets better. No, except for pool parties. They're fucking awful. Can't eat for 2 weeks out from them. Worst. Don't be gay, kids. It's so hard.
No, being gay is great. Gay. It's a gift.
And eat everything like this one does. Oh, so jealous.
It's a sickness. Okay. All right, here's another question, actually. This is coming from @CoinElizabeth. And Elizabeth is asking, one of my BFFs sometimes gets into this ridiculous state of being judgmental. At such times, he is not able to appreciate anything. I think it is another self-defense coping mechanism. What do you think? So I think we've actually kind of spoken a lot to this specific thing, kind of like where it comes from, how it is a coping mechanism and all of that. The thing that I was actually kind of, like a kind of a follow-up to Elizabeth's question of this is, what happens actually when you have a friend who you know is being judgmental? Not even being judgmental at you, directing it at you, but do you ever have those friends who's just constantly just gossiping or kind of talking shit about this person or that person, and you're just there, like witnessing it? And
the hardest thing, it's just like you don't really realize it until it's happened for quite a while, but you realize it's just an energy suck.
Yeah.
And it's just like negative, and it's just like not fun to be around.
Right.
And you realize that person is slowly becoming a miserable person because of it. And I've had friends before that kind of get into that funk, and it's 9 times out of 10 because they're having a hard time in their life. Yeah. So then they just externalize and they just, project it, I should say, onto everybody else. And I've actually, I can remember in the recent past I had a conversation with somebody where I was just like, just try to think of the positive and don't judge, and you're going to be so much happier if you think of something positive before you immediately knee-jerk reaction to something negative. Yeah. And I think it helped and it fixed them, and they're all better and the best person in the world. Thanks to me. No, I think it's
just... I just lost another client.
Yeah. I'm just going to wait outside your door. No, I just think that in general, because I do the same thing, and again, I'm only speaking from my own experience, and that's how I was able to talk to them. I was definitely a person that was just well, screw this, and this party sucks, and I don't want to be here, and that person is an asshole. You're always going to be able to find something that's bad in any situation.
And then you can
My mother
judge.
is a pro at it. Love her to death, but I swear to God, you could stick her in the middle of Munchkin Land, and she's going to find something wrong with it.
Yeah.
So
totally.
I think that it's just a matter of getting that person to switch their focus.
Yeah, but like you said too, even just having a direct conversation and be like, hey, look, maybe let's talk about some positive things,
and not having to realize it.
Yeah, they might not even realize it, and sometimes even just the littlest bit of a thing could be like, oh right, cool, I got it, and you can switch the conversation. So I think we actually might have another call. So hello, caller, are you there?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Is this Jimmy or is this Mel again?
Yes, it is Mel calling back from the White fan.
Yay, Jimmy's here.
Hi, Jimmy.
How are you, buddy?
Brian, I'm okay. And Brian, you're doing such a good job on the show that I'm laughing out loud, and I'm literally afraid that Matt's gonna replace me next week.
You're gonna get here, and I'm gonna be sitting in your chair hey, Jimmy. James. I don't know your name, whatever. Screw you.
Jimmy, we miss you. We're sending you a lot of love.
Yes.
I know, I miss you guys too. I was texting Ryan being oh, it's but it's so good to listen to you guys, and you're saying such good stuff.
Jimmy, I love that even when you're not here, you still manage to talk to Ryan.
Yeah.
Oh my God, well, Matt, I would have texted you, but I know you're totally in the zone.
No, I'm teasing you.
I think when you come back, I should be in your chair so that you can just backhand slap me and throw me to the ground and then take over again. We should have a very dramatic.
Hey, I'm into any kind of rating stunts.
Jimmy, listening to the show, did you have any quick 2 cents about judgment? I'm totally putting you on the spot right now.
I would agree. I totally agree with everything that you guys have said, and I feel like it's such a defense mechanism. I think with myself, I growing up and getting bullied, judging other people can be a way to kind of, take the attention, the hurt feelings off yourself. I feel like I analyze people and I'm okay, what are their weaknesses? If I meet someone, I can still fall into that, kind of scanning them, okay, this girl has a crooked smile and her clothes, she seems poor, so if I'm going to fight with her later, that'll be the first thing I say. And it's, really sad, it's
true, yeah.
Totally old behavior, but I think it's just because exactly like what Brian's saying, you need to, it's like protecting yourself against being targeted, you know?
Yeah.
Even
Totally.
if that poor girl with a crooked smile, who's most likely poor, decides to come after you, you are ready, Jimmy.
Guys, I can't with this.
I know,
but
I
you know
love how,
what?
like, I'm describing my bully, and she sounds so weak. I'm like, you guys have no idea what I've been through.
Literally describing like a grandmother. That bitch is gonna come for me. I know it.
No, but you know what? Sometimes you know how there are sometimes when you can almost kind of like you were saying, you can almost kind of call up, maybe not necessarily how they're dressed or what you think their background is, but when you can almost kind of see where somebody is probably going to be really sensitive or how they might be wounded in some way, to be able to instead of using that as a weapon, being able to use that actually in a really functional, healthier way for ourselves, to be able to think like, oh, okay, they probably have been bullied about that thing or these few different things throughout their lives. So I begin to see a little bit maybe more of that wounded person. And I remember actually when I was training in grad school, and my practicum advisor said to me, as you know, we were all in our internships, and I was seeing clients, just starting to see clients, and she said, have you gotten to that point yet where somebody comes in and you're working with a client, they're sitting across from you, and everything that they're presenting with just like kind of like falls away, and you can actually just see that kind of like little wounded person that's inside? And I was like, I think maybe kind of, I don't think so. And she was just kind of like, okay, you'll get there. And sure enough, it was probably only another few years before I began to have the ability to do that. So, and I think we all have the ability to do that when we can have a little bit more compassion and be able to consider, okay, why might somebody be as defensive as they are? And even if you're coming up with things that might not even be accurate, anything that really lends itself to more compassion for somebody can be helpful, because then that's going to help us depersonalize it, so we can understand that somebody else's judgments is on them and comes from their own insecurities. And then it also helps us find a way of more directly extinguishing whatever that moment would be. Instead of continuing to help it heighten, you know, and have it escalate, we can actually de-escalate it by, you know, maybe saying something about it and squashing it or whatever, or stepping away from it or whatever. But it just helps us have a little bit more compassion, so we can more effectively find our way out of it, instead of our own defenses.
Yeah, and totally. And
that,
also
Jimmy?
thinking about, like, you guys were talking about, like, the best way to deal with it when someone is judging you. And it's also like to realize, like, it has nothing to do with you. Like, when someone is like judging you, it's all about them and their insecurities, and they're just like projecting on you like a whiteboard. So if it triggers you, you might have your own issues with that.
Yeah.
But
that's like that quote that I posted earlier today, which is that we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. So recognizing that if anybody's treating us in a certain way, it's just coming from their own stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
I recognize
totally. Well, I won't hog all the time. You guys are doing great. Oh, Matt, I'm curious. Matt and Brian, question for you guys.
Yeah.
What is your thing that you feel like, and this is kind of personal, but what do you feel most insecure about? Like, Matt, when you are around people, like, what is the one thing where if someone makes a comment to you, or if there's like a comment in your YouTube section, which you know I read all of them.
There's a YouTube section with comments? I was not warned of this beforehand.
Don't read them.
Oh my god. I should have worn
But like both of you guys, what's your like thing you're like, I hope no one brings this up?
I would think one of the things for me is one of the things that I've had to just be mindful of is I kind of have this fear that people are going to call me out as like a fraud or as phony, or like, who the hell are you? Like, you know, who told you that you have all the answers? Why are you talking like you like know everything? Or, you know, if somebody asks me a question and I start going into like kind of like therapist-y sounding Matt, like I never really want to be that, and I start getting kind of like a little self-conscious. So it's just kind of checking some of that, and then, you know, that kind of the idea of being like a fraud, I think, is kind of like a universal theme for a lot of us as gay men, and that's how that shows up for me.
Totally.
So yeah, I would say that's mine.
Well, you shouldn't.
Brian, what about you?
I would call you out on your bullshit right away. I think you're quite genuine. For me, Jimmy, thanks for bringing it up, first of all, in public. I guess I would say, I don't know, it's changed over time. Probably just like, especially this specifically goes towards gay judgment, but my body, like just how I look. I was a total fat kid growing up, and in college I like was a large person that enjoyed food and all the dining hall food that had to be offered.
Dining hall food.
Yeah, I'm a total stress eater. I'm a
So
stress
good.
eater. Like I will literally I will black out and look down at an empty bag of chips. So that's one of those
Totally.
situations. Like when I was joking before about the pool parties, but for real, like
Yeah.
I'll go and we live in West Hollywood. And,
Yeah.
I'll go and I'll immediately be like, officially the fattest person here. Fantastic. And I honestly like. At the end of the day, that's where I've got my sense of humor from as a measure of defense.
Yeah.
But that's probably, that's the one thing that I will definitely think of. And as much as like, my partner can tell me that I look great and then I know that I'm like, looking better than I have before.
Yeah.
It'll take like, half a comment from someone that's not even on purpose to like just cut me right down.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's how
Just
you
immediately-
crumble.
yeah,
Like it
I'm-
really takes just a couple
Congratulations,
words.
I'm literally 8 years old and crying into my pillow
Yeah.
once again.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think but all of this is really great point too, because it's in those moments. And Jimmy, it's a good question, because when you have more of an awareness about really what are your particular triggers, then when you're going to be that much more likely to react and to be
Yes.
defensive, and then to start like lobbing judgments at other people.
Yeah.
But all that ever does whenever we meet judgment with other judgment is it just continues to affirm all of that's true. That you really are that fat kid, that I am this really kind of like obnoxious therapist-y sounding person who thinks he knows everything, and then even more at the core of that there is something wrong or inadequate about us. Jimmy, I don't want to let you go without you sharing what yours is.
Yeah.
Oh, Matt, how dare you?
You knew that was coming.
Mine, I guess it's just when someone's like, "You're not funny," or because then because people could say, like if they insult the way I look or my body,
right?
It's like whatever, because that all everyone's just getting older and
Yeah.
getting uglier, and so I'm like, well, I'm not gonna try to get too attached to that. But then when someone's like, "Oh, you're not funny," that's like. That's like the worst. I think for any comedian, it's like, because then what do you say to that?
I mean, I think Jimmy, oh my God, honestly, I think for any person, I'm not a comedian, but I remember when I was younger, and my brother, who's a few years older than me, I used to always look up to him because I just thought he was the funniest person ever. And we were at like, my cousin's place or something, and like hanging out with like a couple of like younger kids in the neighborhood or something. And my brother was being like, oh, funny, and just like had all of these jokes. And I like, and this one kid was like, cracking up at everything my brother said. And I jumped in with like one little thing, and like deadpan, just like stared at me and goes, "You're not funny." And that's all he said, and I seriously like didn't speak for the rest of the day.
That is like legitimately my nightmare. That is so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, Matt, I think you're hilarious, and I love
thanks,
you guys.
Jamie.
And,
Love
Brian,
you.
thank you for filming my shoes. You're doing such a good job, and
Thank you
I'll
very
talk
much,
to you guys
sir.
later.
Thanks,
Take
Jimmy.
care.
Sending
Okay,
extra
bye-bye.
love.
We'll see you soon.
Oh,
That was a good
love
caller. What was his name
him.
again? Seemed like a nice guy.
Irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
But that was a perfect way to end our show because we are all out of time. But everybody, definitely be sure to come back next Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific time, which we will be here again. And also be sure to follow us at Into Talk Show on all social media, and tweet and comment your questions at us so that we can make sure that this is really a show for you and we're answering all the questions that you guys do have. And of course, also always remember, today is a chance to uplift someone so we can all rise together.
Yes. And if you don't, you're absolute trash.
Yeah.
Yeah?
You did it!
Yay! Thanks, everybody.